That said, I said this song sounds like a Japanese arcade, something you just have to tune out and get through so you can play Street Fighter 2.
Hello and welcome to another episode of 1001 Album Complaints, the show where longtime friends, musicians, and guys who gonna hate get together to break down a classic album from the list of 1001 albums you must hear before you die. Each week, we pick an album, we tell the backstory, and at the end of the episode, we will vote on whether you need to hear this album before you die. Now, if you're familiar with the show, welcome back. You already know what you're in for, and you are complicit in this with us. But if you're new to the show, I must warn you that this is not your typical album review podcast. We are all musicians ourselves. We've written and recorded music, so we have a deep appreciation for all that goes into making records. But we also know that every piece of art gives you a little something to make fun of and to nitpick. So fair warning, we are going to poke some fun at this record. Now, this week, we are talking about an upstart underground musician who's been quietly making great music behind the scenes for years and who I think might just have a shot at making it big one of these days. Her name, of course, is Taylor Swift, and the album is 1989. So let's play a quick snippet of the opening track from this album. Well, not that any of you have not heard Taylor Swift before, but just to tee us up a little bit and give us a sense of what we've been listening to, wanted to play that snippet. Let's now introduce our cast of characters that we have today with a possibly mean, possibly snarky, could run the gamut on this one, tweet-length review of the album 1989. And I'm going to start first with Phil.
Endless lore, self-referential lyrics, devoted disciples, fan art, concerts that turn normal humans into zealots. Taylor Swift is just Phish for preteen girls.
Wow. Now, coming from Phil, that was a compliment, but I was laughing to myself out because you're like, this is the time we're going to go nice on the tweets on the Taylor Swift episode?
Yeah, Phil just wants to shoehorn Phish into anything, let's be honest, but I dig it. All right, let's move on to Rob.
Thanks, Alan. I have a short and sweet and very topical, I think, tweet. Simply put, not enough songs about Travis Kelce's dick.
Yet.
Yeah. It's coming, Rob. It's coming.
Yeah, she's only 35. Come on, man. There's a lot of material left out there to mine. All right, let's hear from Tom.
Thank you, Alan. The Exxon Valdez oil spill, the Tiananmen Square massacre, the San Francisco Loma Prieta earthquake, and the birth of Taylor Swift. 1989 truly was the year of terrible events that we are still dealing with the repercussions of today.
Damn, Tiananmen Square, that's a solid one.
That's going to get us banned in several countries, by the way, just mentioning that.
Yeah, all right. So this is Alan here, and you know, people say there's a double standard when it comes to how Taylor Swift is treated compared to men, and I think I have to agree. When she writes about her ex-lovers, it's a masterpiece. But when I write about mine, it's suddenly a manifesto.
That was real cheesy. Yeah, good.
All right. Well, thanks for those tweets, guys. Now, I'm going to give you all a heads up. If you head on over to our Patreon page, there is already a chat going on about this album right now. We've got some funny characters over there, some pretty sharp cats. So if you think you can beat those tweets, hop on over or go tell us that, you know, we're right or what we got wrong. We'd love to see you over in the 1001 Album Complaints Patreon page. Okay. I want to get into some general impressions as we like to do, but first, I have to admit, this kind of feels like a big one, and not because it's a milestone episode for us or like a heavy hitter that we hold sacred, because let's be real, I think Rob would be far more prepared to lead one of those than I will be for this one. But we have to just acknowledge she's probably the most famous woman on the planet, right?
Very possible.
At this point in time, yeah, that's a reasonable opinion to hold.
She's a force of nature.
And fans that might actually try to kill us for negative opinions about Taylor Swift. They're pretty rabid.
Well, I thought it was funny, Alan, that you said in the opening, who hasn't heard her? But what I think you really meant to say was who hasn't heard of her? Because I think one thing that I felt was left feeling this week is, man, for all the hubbub, obviously I'm familiar with a couple of these songs, but I really hadn't heard much of her. It's obviously not in our wheelhouse. It's not coming into my life. So it was a little bit of a new experience for me, is what I'm trying to say.
Well, you obviously don't have a 9-year-old daughter then, because I have to say, I have heard all of these songs many, many times. I like many of these songs. I've never heard them played as an album, but my daughter is quite fond of Taylor Swift, and I've heard a lot of it. Absent that, though, I would tend to agree. I mean, some of these songs you would have had to have heard, but probably aren't. It's not showing up probably in the places that you occupy mostly.
Let's get it out of the way right now, and I'll just agree with you that there's plenty to like here. I do think she's written some good pop songs. There's some fun songs on this, and I think she has highlights in both the writing and the pop production. And we'll talk about some of those elements. That said, there's definitely some low points and plenty to complain about as well. And just to kick that off, I just wanted to talk about the vocal stacking. It's crazy. For those who might not know, I wouldn't be surprised if there's 16 Taylor vocal tracks on some of these tunes with just her stacking on top of herself. And I think it's kind of a defining element in modern pop music. It's part of what gives it this modern pop sound. I don't know if she's at the forefront of that or Jack Antonoff or whoever produced it is, but
That's Max Martin is the guy who's credited as the vocal producer on this album. So he very much got into that. I think that when he presents her voice nakedly, it actually works really well. And I think he does a good job of getting some of the charm and character in her voice when it's presented just her. But you're right, Rob. When it's like 35 Taylors, it's an army of Taylor Swift coming at you. It's a little bit too much.
Well, I mean, I'm sure we'll get into this to some degree, but this would have been a huge, well, not a huge shift, but this is the official shift from country music. There's no country left at this point, right? Like, this is straight pop.
Yes. I think that there's a couple of songs, one of which that we're going to talk about, that I am like, oh, strip this down to an acoustic guitar and her singing it and change the tempo and the cadence a little bit, and it's just a country song. But it got completely, not perverted, but just made over by the Max Martin Swedish hit machine and turned into something that sounded, frankly, like a little bit more generic than I think that, not that country isn't generic as well, but I think she had a little bit of that twangy style, even when she was still leaning towards pop. There was something that was a differentiator there, that she was still had that little bit of that country roots. And you're right, it's very hard to find them in this album.
I tend to agree with your comment, Tom, that when more of quote unquote her shines through, when she is the person being highlighted, whether in her songwriting or whether you get this glimpse of humanity amidst this perfect pop production, that tends to be when I like the stuff more. And I'll just say on the flip side, the problem with these modern pop production conventions, which are super maximalist sounding, they always kind of sound good in a very basic way, but they also sound derivative. And there is this tendency, and I think we're going to get to some of the songs like this, you could polish up a turd real nice and convince yourself that boring raw material is good because you gave it this pop treatment.
Yeah. Well, and also it all ends up sounding a little safe when you are putting it through that pop buffer to just take out all the edges.
Yeah, the compression machine, the pop compression machine, yeah.
Yeah, and as much as I will complain about some artists that take chances and I don't like the results, like this album doesn't really feel like it's taking any chances. It does feel like very kind of safe and down the middle. But one thing I do want to comment on, and I'm saying this in a positive way, what came through on the album to me is that Taylor Swift is a huge fucking dork. And like, it actually was like a little charming to, I don't know, like there was times where she's talking about, what's the line that she says, like, she's a nightmare dressed as a daydream. And you're like, sure, Taylor, sure thing you are. You're the fucking,
I think she comes off as like pretty self-aware in like a pretty funny way at times. Yeah, I agree.
Yeah.
We'll get into a lot of this stuff. I think it's a big part of her appeal to such a huge audience. And that's what makes her, I think, so big, is that is the kind of thing that the average person relates to. And if you go to one of her shows, you're going to see, probably 90% women and a lot of kids. And if she was singing about doing blow or whatever, like
the little Christina Aguilera dirty,
Yeah. So I think
Reba dips a boulder in the water.
Yeah.
That's her charm and her brilliance as a marketer, right? Is that she's continued to be able to position herself as an underdog despite being a multi-billionaire.
Yes.
Correct. She is no underdog, and nor ever was. And we'll get into the backstory there. But I agree. She has been very savvy with marketing, very savvy as a business person, and has had the benefit. And this, you don't see this a lot with a lot of teenage superstars or musicians, where she has brought her audiences along with her, where she's really stacking these audiences, where often people sort of bail after they grow up and they realize, I'm not really into this teeny bopper stuff anymore. But as she has evolved, it's been this sort of compounding effect. And I think that has really been a big differentiator for why she is as rich as she is and as successful, honestly. And you don't really see that a lot.
Well, Phil's comparison to Phish is accurate to a certain extent. The way that she's been able to keep fan interaction, make fans feel like they're a part of the storyline or the songs, or she seems to lean into the fan art that Phil alluded to. And I'm going to add one more that I don't think Phil hit on, that I was left feeling, is that lyrically, she is good at one-liners that the crowd can hang on to.
Yeah.
You already referenced one, Tom. She's got that single memorable line, a way of writing that I think is very, it's not a hook in the sense of a chorus hook.
Come on, say it, Rob. I know you don't want to say it. This is the exact same praise you've slathered on Bob Dylan in the past. Is that he'll just have that one line that pops out to you. So you're saying Taylor Swift is like Bob Dylan. All right. Rob's on record.
I was not going to say anything of the sort. Honestly, I wasn't even thinking about that. She's in no way anything like the songwriting of Bob Dylan, which is poetic and literary. What I mean, no, she's more like Phish, which I don't think gets a lot of songwriting compliments, even on this podcast.
Lyrically, no.
But I think what they're good at is the one line they leave you with, the one line that the crowd wants to chant or sing back to you that is left sticking with you that's not necessarily the chorus.
I would agree with that. And she does narrative really well. And whether you like the narrative or not, whether you think it's basic, everyone will have their own opinion, but she is very good at it. She creates these worlds within her albums. She has a very cohesive approach to the way she puts this stuff together. She's extremely thoughtful about how she structures these things and who her audience is. And so again, whether you think it's basic, she is great at narrative, and that's been a big part of kind of fueling her success.
Speaking of basic, this is something that initially I was kind of like, oh, okay. And then it really started to grate on me. This has this hallmark of the Max Martin production that I think was just everywhere at that time. And it's that low synth note that just like kind of hangs out at the bottom of the whole song.
The Moog drone.
And by the end of the album, you're like, Jesus Christ, like another time where like after 6 bars of the first verse, I get a boo doo doo coming in to just lay the bed over everything. It made it sound a little generic, honestly. And Rob, like you said, at first you're kind of like, oh yeah, nice. It gives some cohesion and lays everything together. And then after the 15th time you hear it, like, Jesus Christ, it's just so played out.
I want to make it clear, because sometimes it's not, maybe for the listeners. I'm coming in fairly positive. Perhaps my expectations were lowered. I do think there's some very generic pop music and some polishing of turds on the record, but I also think there's some exceptional tracks that stand out from both a writing and a production standpoint. So I'm not sure I can fully sign on to what you just said, Tom.
I actually listened to this record a bunch back in like 2016, 2017. My then like 3-year-old kid really liked Shake It Off, and I became familiar with the whole record at the time. I liked it at the time. I thought a lot of the production was very clever. Listening back to it, I thought it sounded a little more dated than I was expecting. I expected it to sound a little more modern.
Maybe that's more my issue, is that it definitely just sounds like everything else sounded in that era in terms of the production. I agree on the songwriting front. I do actually think there's some well-written songs. And I think there's also some very well-produced songs. I just think that, like, they also did the same tricks on some of the shitty songs, and that's where I'm really just sort of like, come on.
Yeah.
Yeah, sure.
Yeah, I think I agree with a little bit of what you all are saying. And I also came into it generally positive, or at least came away from it more positive than negative, certainly. And also, just a quick point of clarification, because, speaking of the production and Max Martin and all that stuff, there are several different versions and remakes of this album. And the one that we're focusing on tonight is the original 2014 version, which is not to be confused with probably the more successful and more heralded remake that Ryan Adams did a year after that.
Oh, that was good. That was a good one.
I love just randomly boosting Ryan Adams out of nowhere. That's great.
No, fuck that guy. No, she did re-record and re-release this album in 2023 after a pretty bitter dispute regarding ownership of the master recordings for her first several albums. She did actually get them back earlier this year. It's not clear what she paid for it, but it was, I'm sure, a very handsome sum.
Took it out of that Eras tour money that she made. Because that's also something that we didn't talk about. And not that Phish necessarily directly does this, but I give a lot of credit to her for putting together a tour de force show that was like 2.5 hours of just fucking Taylor coming at you. Super highly choreographed. That's fucking cool.
Oh, yeah. That's clearly awesome.
Yeah.
She was doing 40 to 50 songs a night on these.
Oh, here's another Phish comparison, though. Wouldn't she bust out like one song per night that she hadn't played on tour yet?
Yeah, 2 surprises, and the rest of the set is locked.
And it would end with a vocal jam where everyone was going.
But what Phil's saying is that is the appeal of Phish. Phish is very easy to make fun of. I know we talk about him a lot. We make fun of Phil. We also like him. I imagine for listeners who don't know us, maybe this is confusing, our opinions about them. But I'm just trying to tell you what their appeal is. Their appeal is you go to the show and literally anything can happen. They can play any song from recorded history. And there's just something exciting about that.
Yeah, absolutely.
Totally, without a doubt. And we'll get into some of the backstory and some of the songs at some point. But I also just wanted to close the loop on what I started saying earlier, which was that I did come in fairly positive on this. I really tried to take off my cynical hat for this one, but I was reminded of something that a former coworker said to me once when we were talking about music. She said, in a very friendly way, she said, just shut up and let people like shit.
Yeah.
Which is probably something that, is antithetical to this podcast.
Yeah, good point. Yeah, let's end this whole operation right now.
I'll see you guys later.
I remember somebody saying something similar to me back in the day when I was talking shit on those Dan Brown books, like the
Da Vinci Code,
the Da Vinci Code and all that. Like, those are fucking stupid trash novels. And I forget who it was. They're like, people are reading. You should just be happy that people are reading. I'm like, you know what? That's a very good point. People are listening to music and fucking frankly listening to mostly, not this album, but like mostly acoustically and like real produced music by Taylor Swift. That's a huge achievement in this modern day and age. So good for her.
Yeah, and there's an element of songwriting craft, just to add to that. It's so, yes, I totally agree with the sentiment.
Well, and to be clear, 1 hour from now, I will put that cynical hat right back on. So to be clear. Yeah. But I do think that, just speaking of the music itself, it was hard to get my arms around it because of all the noise that surrounds her and her music. But I did feel like this was a very good pop record, and it's got its issues, but I kept thinking about if this were a Katy Perry record from that year, or Kesha, or a Britney Spears, or name your pop artist that's worked with Max Martin and that Swedish connection. I don't know what those sound like, but I would bet my life that this is leagues better than all of those other albums that were coming out in and around that time. So I just want to put that out there. And I think where that comes through is that she's a songwriter first and foremost, and we'll get into some of that later. But yeah, I came away fairly positive with some obvious weak points.
I think where the comparisons to like a Katy Perry or a Kesha, where Taylor comes out clearly on top, is that the best song on her album is way better than any of the best songs on their album. And the songs that we're considering second and third tier are better than almost every other song on those albums. Those albums usually have like one song that's like a song that's meant to be very popular and poppy, and the rest is just kind of filler shit. And I didn't really feel like there was a ton of filler. I thought that there were some swings and misses, certainly, but very little of it felt lazy.
I think that's a good way to put it. There were some swings and misses, but like there isn't like just straight filler the way you can absolutely get on a certain type of pop or hip hop album. I'm thinking of like the quote comedy segments in some of the hip hop albums.
Yeah, where's the Taylor Swift skits? Where's that? The world's waiting.
That'll come on the remakes, the bonus content. All right. Well, let's dive a little more into her backstory and some of the context around her and this record. But before we do, we're going to take a quick break. Okay, we are back. So she has been an extremely documented human, and millions of words have been written about her. So I'm not going to cover her entire life story, but I'm going to touch on a few pivotal events I think that helped kind of shape her and some of the things that I felt were most important to the story.
Wait. Can I disassociate now before you dive into the Nepo baby history? Or should I just like wait a couple of minutes?
What, you think I'm not going to get into that? Or
I just need like a 3-minute warning.
Oh, it's coming. It's coming, baby. Nepo baby is maybe not the right word for it, because I think that would imply connections, but she had every benefit that you could possibly imagine. She did make the most of it and capitalized on it, which I will not take anything away from her on that. We'll get to that momentarily, but just starting with Taylor Swift, she was born in December of, you guessed it, 1989. And that's really like the theme for this album, this idea of birth, but probably more so rebirth. And you've already kind of alluded to some of that, where this is where she makes that super hard pivot to pop, where she's fully, there's no trace of country left on this record. It's also, even on a more like surface level, this was around the time that she had moved to New York City from Nashville.
Didn't get that from any of these songs, by the way.
So she had already become, at this point, a full-fledged superstar, primarily as a country singer. And she made 4 albums before this. This is her 5th studio album. And she was already so successful by this point that if she had stopped making music entirely at the age of 24, she would still probably be among the most accomplished musicians of her generation. And we all know that. That's pretty well known. But I just think that's a fairly amazing feat. So making the move from New York to Nashville, even though she's not from there, which we'll talk about momentarily, it is significant because, again, this is where she went all in on the pop thing. She brings in the Swedish connection, Max Martin, Shellback, and really like a slew of essentially pop scientists that help her make this pivot. These are the guys who helped bring along and write songs for Backstreet Boys and Britney Spears. So they are, I think pop scientist feels fair to call these guys.
Yeah, it definitely feels like laboratory made.
Yeah, doesn't Max Martin have almost as many hit singles as Paul McCartney or something like that? There's some crazy stat like that.
I wouldn't be surprised. Also, these guys, I never knew what they looked like. Like, I always envisioned this Swedish connection, but they look like they should be playing in a metal band. And I think Shellback actually did play in a metal band before he started writing songs. So they found something.
Rob, by the way, second only to Paul McCartney with 28 number ones.
Dude, what a beast. Listen, you got to give it up. We're going to poke fun, but Jesus Christ.
Yeah. He knows what he's fucking doing.
Oh, yeah, without a doubt. I mean, say what you want. And I think he's self-aware enough to know that what he's producing is probably pap, but it works and it's good. And he knows how to push those buttons. So now there's also a little bit of I think the final kind of 89 theme, if you want to call it that, is musically it has a very 80s type of sound. I don't know if that was intentional, but it's saturated with synth, drum machines. And if you listen to what she had put together before this, it's very much mostly her and an acoustic guitar. And so this was a big change for her. Now, I mentioned she's not from Nashville, and she's never overtly pretended that she's from Nashville or anything. Like, she's never lied about it or anything. I don't want to give off that idea. But I do think a big part of her brand as a young artist was that, especially early on in her career, was here's this Southern all shucks country girl with a guitar and cowboy boots. And this was even alluded to when she appeared on the New Heights podcast recently with her previously referenced fiance, Travis Kelce. and his brother Jason. Travis's dick was not referenced on that podcast, by the way.
She covered it on the latest album.
Yeah.
And so, as Jason's introducing her to the podcast, he says, we have a singer, songwriter, producer from Nashville, Tennessee. Actually, that's bullshit. She's from Pennsylvania.
And dating a guy on the Chiefs, huh? What a fucking sellout.
Yeah, we have confirmed that she grew up an Eagles fan, right?
They billed her Lincoln Financial Field shows for the Eras Tour as a homecoming of sorts. She does refer to her dad watching the Eagles growing up, but she is actually born in West Reading, Pennsylvania, which is about 90 minutes from Philly. So that is definitely the closest. That probably would represent a home team for them. So I'm going to just claim it and say go Birds. Incidentally, though, I did see, speaking of the New Heights podcast, I saw recently that they signed a $100 million contract for that podcast. Jesus Christ.
What the fuck, Spotify? Where's our goddamn check? Come on.
Where's the money, Lebowski?
I'm feeling a little underpaid here, guys. Like, let's get on this shit.
Seriously.
Yeah.
Where's our
Yeah.
$100 check, Spotify?
And our path to $100 billion, talk shit about Taylor Swift.
Yeah, there we go.
Great strategy.
So anyway, here are the tiers of Patreon that you can support us with. So, born outside Philly, by most accounts, she had a very privileged, cushy upbringing. Now, I think that it sometimes gets a little bit over dramatized. People act like her parents were billionaires or something. They weren't, but they were very well-to-do. And it's pretty clear that her parents, I think at best, were incredibly supportive of her pursuing a career. And I think at worst, insufferable assholes from some of the stories that I have read.
It could be both. Could be both. Let me ask you this. Do you know, did she have a horse growing up?
I don't know if she had a horse, but she does claim to have grown up on a Christmas tree farm.
Dude, there's some fucking money in that, man.
But this is another thing that gets a little bit convoluted is I think there's the brand and the story of her that is part of this lore, but then it's not fully complete, or that there's some inconsistencies. So apparently, she will basically say, I grew up on a Christmas tree farm, but it was just a property that her dad owned in addition to where they lived. And I think she spent time there seasonally. She claims it was like some kind of hobby for him. So I don't know any other people that just own Christmas tree farms.
A hobby to just walk the grounds and see how the trees were doing.
Yeah. Walk around and yell at the laborers for not working hard enough.
Yeah. So her dad was a stockbroker for Merrill Lynch, and her mom evidently was some kind of marketing executive, but she stopped working at one point so she could pour all of her energy into making Taylor a star. And this was well before she got a contract.
When you say it like that, they immediately sound crazy.
Yeah.
Yeah, what a dumb decision.
I mean, clearly they could pick them, but there's probably also a million other cashiers at Walmart that have that same story of like my parents. Well, probably not my stockbroker parents did that, but maybe, my parents thought I was going to make it, and yet here I am.
For sure. And again, I think we would have all killed to have parents that were willing to move heaven and earth to support us, but
I would have killed to have parents who just thought I could have made
Yeah,
it.
sure. Yeah, I get it.
Even if they didn't do anything to try, even if they just thought it was a possibility, that would have been great.
what, an English degree from University of Delaware? You didn't make it?
No, I was like, I love playing music, and they're like, that's great, but like, that's never going to be anything, right? Like, you're just never going to do anything worthwhile with that. So
And
you
he
might
was
as well
right.
get an English degree. Yeah.
Next best thing.
Oh, incidentally, her dad did go to the University of Delaware. So whatever that's worth.
Did he really?
Go Blue Hens.
Oh my goodness. Hell yeah.
Hometown special here this episode.
Home of the winners, baby. That's
Right.
Again, so she spent time in these different places. She also spent her summers in a Jersey Shore town called Stone Harbor, which if you're from this area, like Philly area, that's pretty much where the rich people from Philly spend their summers. Like, you definitely need a lot of cash to have a house there.
Oh, so they like had a house. She didn't like go rent a house. She just like had a house they stayed at.
Yes, correct. In the summers, they had a house.
When they weren't living on the Christmas tree farm or caring for her miniature horse, Muffin.
Should we clarify for people not from the region that the Jersey Shore is a pretty large swath of shoreline? So there's a cheap version and a rich version, certainly.
Yeah. There's definitely some shitty versions. I'm sure Bruce Springsteen can tell you all about them.
But this you're talking about like I have a $3 million vacation home that I don't generate income on. I just keep it so I can use it when I want type of money, right?
I mean, maybe you can get one for $3 million in Stone Harbor. So
okay.
it's kind of
All
like
right, fair
that.
enough.
Yeah, it's pretty wild. And yes, that is among the nicer areas of the Jersey Shore. But again, her parents were fairly hell-bent on making her a star. And I don't want to take away from her talents, her abilities. She nailed all of her opportunities, but I think it would be disingenuous to at least not acknowledge that as a big factor in her early success. Now, before she got into music, she was a bit of a theater kid. So she performed at local theaters. Her parents would even take her to New York City for voice lessons and for acting lessons. And she claims that when she was either 10 or 11, she watched a documentary about the country singer Faith Hill. And that's when she decided she wanted to be a country singer. This was sort of disputed by her guitar teacher, who we'll talk about in a minute. And again, it's hard to know who was really steering the ship on this, but that's her official account of when she decided she wanted to be a country singer in Reading, Pennsylvania, of all places.
But I mean, either way, at this point, she's very young, right?
She's like 10. Yeah. So
Yeah, these are just childish pipe
yeah.
dreams, right? So, okay.
Yeah, she doesn't know where the Mason-Dixon line is and that she's well north of it, you know?
The way you're setting up this like disputed storyline, it makes me think something real sinister is going to come out. You're going to blow this Taylor Swift conspiracy wide open. She didn't actually look up to Faith Hill.
No. It's not sinister. I think more there is a little bit of an undercurrent of people who have helped her along the way who are now fairly disgruntled. I don't think that's a surprise when you have somebody that's this successful. And so really that's kind of what I'm alluding to is a guy I'll talk about in a moment. So who knows if some of it's like sour grapes.
Well, there's definitely also, as you've said many times, there's also a manicuring of the lore going on very purposefully to make it seem like she was just this cute young girl from a Christmas tree farm who just wanted to be a country star her whole life. And it's like, your parents were probably like, all right, well, you're not good enough for Broadway because we've been trying to get you to do that. So, all right, let's get you a different set of instructors here. And like, hey, we'll pay Faith Hill to come to the house and give you a pep talk or something like that, you know?
For sure. I mean, and look, if you want to make it as an artist of any sort, especially as a kid, like you need a differentiator. And so the more you can cultivate that story, there was definitely a lot of that going on.
Yeah, and you also need insane parents. To make it as a 10-year-old, your parents need to be fucking nuts.
That's what I'm saying. It's a little.
For sure. So around this time, she's 10 or 11, she starts singing essentially karaoke covers of Dolly Parton and Dixie Chicks songs and put some of them on a demo tape. And then her mom actually took her to Nashville to go shop these demos around to different recording studios, hoping that she would get signed just on the back of these cover demos.
A little fucking RCA tape that she brought.
Pretty much, yeah. And so good on her mom for doing this. Again, I think we all wish our parents did that. But let's be honest, I think her voice is not her secret sauce.
That just smacks of like the confidence that only an upper middle class white woman could have. It's just like, I'm just going to show up and they're just going to give us a contract. Of course. No one ever says no to me.
Right. Look, it's a kid. She sings. Ha.
Yeah.
So predictably, she doesn't get signed, but her and her mom leave feeling like Nashville is where they want to be. And that's where they start kind of sowing the seeds for eventually relocating there. But they're still not quite at that point yet. They even go back a few times to keep pounding the pavement, but nothing's really sticking, but they have this sort of goal in mind. In the meantime, though, she learns how to play guitar so that she can start writing her own songs. I think even maybe she realized quickly that, singing Dolly Parton songs isn't really gonna make it happen.
Yeah. You're gonna need material for sure.
She's not fucking Whitney Houston, where you hear her voice and you're like, oh my God.
Or Christina Aguilera. That's who it was making me think of, who we talked about on this show and who was, I don't know, singing the national anthem at NHL games at age 11 or some shit.
Yeah.
Incidentally, there is a video of Taylor singing the national anthem at a Sixers game. This was back in like the Iverson days, so there was like the glory days. But anyway, and I do not want to criticize a child singer, but it's not that good.
I thought you were going to say the play calling at the end of game 2, 2000 NBA Finals.
Dude, Eric Snow, man, he only had like 4 assists. It was bullshit. Yeah.
Well, stay tuned for Alan and Phil's separate podcast, Philadelphia Sports Pitching.
So the way she tells the story about learning guitar, and there's all sorts of lore around this. I think I've heard her talk about this in interviews, but essentially a computer technician who was also a local musician happened to come to her house to do some sort of repair job for her dad, sees a guitar hanging on the wall. He asks her about it. She says, she doesn't know how to play it. So he pulls it off the wall, shows her a couple of chords, and then she's basically self-taught after that. She's off and running, picks it up immediately, starts churning out songs, and the rest is history, which again does make for a good narrative, except anyone who's a musician knows that's unlikely, right?
That's fucking bullshit.
Sure.
Yeah.
The way this guy tells it, and this guy's name is Ronnie Kramer, is he did have a computer repair shop where he also had a small DIY studio. And this guy's brother apparently had met the Swifts through the theater. He brings them over to the studio because they want to record some more of these Dolly Parton demos, I guess. So he does a few songs for him, puts them on tape. But then a few days later, her mom reaches back out and asks if he'll give her guitar lessons. She ends up hiring him to give Taylor 3-hour lessons twice a week over a period of many months. So minimum of 6 hours a week, which might not sound like a lot before a part-time guitar player and a 12-year-old. That's a lot of guitar.
It's a long time to be in a lesson.
I agree. It's like
Yeah.
classroom intensity. College
Yeah, that's
classroom. Yeah.
Hour a day for 6 days a week would probably be way more effective. By that, you get to 90 minutes into that, you're gonna be fucking zoning out, even if you're really into it.
For sure. And the reason a lot of these went long is because he was not only just showing her how to strum the guitar, he was teaching her.
He was also grooming her.
Oh, gosh. From what it sounds like, he wanted to get the fuck out of that house as quickly as he could with his parents. But he actually teaches her about singing, how to project while you're playing, how to write and structure songs, how to get your hooks into the right part of the song. So he's really like breaking down, kind of going that extra mile, obviously, if you're there for 3 hours. But he was even showing her how to use Ableton as a way to like lay out her songs and record them. So things that most people are not getting taught at that age.
That sounds like also a very self-serving narrative from him. I taught Taylor Swift everything she knows. I taught her music production. I taught her how to write hooks. I'm sure he's used that to up his hourly rate for guitar lessons.
You know what? That would be my assumption, but he seems like he describes the mom as totally insane, and that's why he stopped working with them. The more of the stories I hear, I think that's actually true, but she was also really riding him. I think she wanted more out of him, frankly. So it's hard to know. If it were me, I would certainly use that to get more, gigs. But it's sort of unclear on that front.
Well, again, though, I mean, Taylor did learn those things. So whether she learned it from him or like she was there to take it in, which is the actually impressive part, right?
Sure. Agreed.
For sure. And I think where this guy's bone of contention comes from, and he doesn't go around talking about this. He was asked about it in an interview like 20 years after the fact or whatever. I think it's because this idea has been perpetuated of this guy randomly stopped by, showed her a couple chords, and was out of her life entirely when he was a major part of her learning how to do all this stuff. And I think he doesn't get really any acknowledgement. He never really got any money out of it either, other than the hourly rate he was getting. And I also think the distinction is kind of important and validating because, again, anytime that I can impress that you only get good at an instrument with practice and hard work, I think needs to be told because it's just an angle that doesn't get talked about very much, especially when it comes to her being seen as this prodigy, basically.
To be fair, though, even with 6 hours of lessons a week, you still don't get good unless you're playing outside of those lessons.
Absolutely.
Like, you got to come to the lessons
Yeah, I
prepared.
agree with that.
It still does take drive. Yeah.
The practice is a slog, and a lot of it has to be on your own. And I'm sure at a 3-hour lesson, a fair amount of that is the teacher watching the student practice. But even still, you got to put more than that in.
Yeah.
Oh, absolutely. Yeah, that's not alone going to do it. Certainly is necessary. And she was a good student by all accounts. Of course, that would track.
Yeah, she clearly comes off as hyper intelligent, right? So
Yes. And I don't see it taking away from her origin story. That, like, there was a guy there who worked intensely with her and she was very dedicated and got good. That's a great origin story. It doesn't have to be like, I picked up a guitar and like a wizard, I could play it. It's like, come on.
I think it depends on who is receiving the story. Because I think both things, like I resonate more with that. But if you are a casual fan or someone who is interested in her as a young artist.
Someone who thinks guitar is easy.
Yeah. But again, it was part of the mystique of this young prodigy, right? And so clearly that doesn't happen often.
this is like her game.
Yes.
All right, we got to put a stop to that.
And this is Colonel Forbin teaching her the guitar.
And he's also the one, this guitar guy who.
Colonel Forbin, yes.
I guess they're fining you guys $20 for every new Phish reference.
Well, once we get that $100 million podcast contract, it's going to be small potatoes.
Yeah, exactly.
But he says that the parents were a nightmare to work with. He says that her dad he would pressure a lot of these theater productions to give her lead parts, and that he would actually buy up all the unpurchased tickets to her shows so that he could call it a sellout, basically. But he says the mom was way worse. She was impossible to work with. He said, this guy says that his wife almost divorced him because of how much time Taylor's mom was like asking him to spend on this project, and she was the one who sort of pushed him to leave. This guy also claims, again, I don't know how much this is sour grapes or not, but he seems like fairly credible guy, that his mom was the one that actually planted the seed to Taylor's mom, because they had sort of known each other, that she should pursue country out of nowhere, that there was this gap in the market or something. So a lot of these stories out there for someone of her stature. Final story I'll tell about this guy and what he shares about her parents, and I'm definitely digressing here, but this one really stuck with me. So he was over to their house one night for a lesson, and they were about to order dinner, and Taylor's brother wanted Taco Bell. So Taylor's like, I want Taco Bell too. And her mom says no, because nobody wants to see a fat pop star. And incidentally, I Googled her mom after I saw this, and the first picture I saw, I thought it was Meatloaf.
Dang. God damn, dude.
So I'm not
It's like we're trying to get sued.
So anyway, okay, I just wanted to tell some of the stories because I think, again, it's a different angle than that public image.
Sure.
But she's obviously a good student. She learns the instrument and starts writing her own songs. When she was about 13, she ends up getting connected to a talent agent named
Rutherford the Brave?
$5.
I'm sorry.
So she gets connected to a talent agent from New York named Damn Dintro, and he actually gets her a modeling gig for Abercrombie, and he helps her get one of her original songs onto a Maybelline compilation, whatever the hell that is.
Can you say his name one more time?
Yes, it's Dan Dimtro.
Damned intro? It's like, give me a damned intro for a talent agent's damned intro.
I'm going to keep saying it wrong the more times you make me say this.
That's fucking great. I love that.
So he does come up a few more times in the story, which is why I'm trying to get his name right. But what he also does is he helps line up a development deal with RCA when she was about 13. And the idea with these development deals is the label likes you, they think you have promise, but they don't think you're ready yet. So they'll develop your talent, connect you with the right people, but it's a little different than a standard recording deal. But it's enough for them to feel like, okay, this is the move. Let's go to Nashville and put all our chips in with this country thing. So when she gets out there, the record company doesn't think she's ready yet and wants her to focus specifically on songwriting, though. And she still plays, but they definitely very much view her as a songwriter, which in Nashville, it's a very robust industry of folks who do this. And they set her up with a bunch of folks from Music Row, which is a pretty well-known hotbed of songwriting talent in Nashville. So she spends a year working on the craft of songwriting, like workshopping with experts, forming these partnerships with people who've been doing this for a very long time. So again, like definitely worked.
Pretty wild opportunity, right? To have it, she's like, what'd you say, 15?
Like 13, 14, something like that. Yeah, still very, very young. Like she would basically go to high school, and then at the end of the day, she would do many hours of songwriting with these experienced songwriters, co-writing songs with them and things like that. So she definitely did the work for sure.
Yeah.
So she's honing her craft without really the pressure to have to make and sell records, which is also a big benefit to her development. The problem though is the label wants her to wait until she's 18 to make a record, to promote her. So it's kind of like a draft pick they're keeping in the minor leagues essentially. And of course, she's not down with that. Her parents definitely are not down with waiting 3 more years. She thinks she's ready. She has a bank of songs and isn't trying to wait any longer. Meanwhile, though, she was also being courted by a record executive named Scott Borchetta, who was in the process of starting a brand new label called Big Machine. And he wanted her to be the first artist that they signed to this label. So He agreed to let her write all of her own songs, basically give her carte blanche, which she was not getting in her current deal. Her dad even wanted to take an ownership stake in the record label, which I think ended up being somewhere around 3%. So not a huge amount, but enough for him to wave his dick around in the board meetings, I guess. So she ends up signing with Big Machine Records and walks away from the development deal. In the process, though, her original manager, this guy, Dan Dimtro, who helped her get established in Nashville, he gets kicked to the curb entirely. And he ends up suing the Swift family because he claimed that he was entitled to something like 5 to 10% of her future album sales or something insane like that. And that, her dad and this guy, Scott Borchetta, conspired to push him out. I think the suit was ultimately dismissed because I didn't see how this ended, but you have to think he felt pretty burned by this. But again, he was not helping her get to that next level. So I think they were completely correct in moving it in a different direction. She signs this deal, goes into the studio, records her self-titled debut album. It is obviously a massive hit. She's, I think, 15 or 16 at this point. It's a huge hit, especially in the country space. It sells a ton of records. And in fact, she became the first female country artist to write or co-write every track on a platinum certified debut album. So a little bit of mouthful, a lot of variables, but felt like that was a pretty solid accomplishment there.
I just realized her first single was called Tim McGraw. She just wrote a song about another guy who's a fucking famous country star and currently famous. It wasn't like she's writing about
Charlie Pride.
Yeah, Charlie Pride. There we go. Yeah.
So these early Taylor Swift songs, really like the first 3 or 4 records, I really genuinely feel like I don't know any of this material. I'm sure you could pull out hits, but none of it feels familiar to me.
Tim McGraw is the first track on her first album.
Oh, I mean, I know the name Tim McGraw. Yeah.
No, we're talking about the song Tim McGraw.
Oh, yeah,
Bill.
yeah.
It's
I
fucking
understand.
odd. Yeah.
The Chili Peppers, by the way, on their, I think, 4th album, they had a song that was just called Magic Johnson. So,
Oh, that means something a little different.
so I think Kiedis.
It might have been about Tim McGraw's dick.
Yeah, so these were pretty basic songs, but catchy, and I think had a lot of the trademarks that you would see in later albums, and a lot of her personality and her voice. First record is a fairly big hit, but it was really her second album called Fearless that really cemented her as a sort of bona fide superstar. It ended up being the highest selling album, period, in the US in 2009, won a shit ton of awards, including the Grammy for Best Album.
Wait. Hold on. Her next album wasn't Fearless, because her next album was the Taylor Swift Holiday Collection that came out in 2007.
That was quick.
My mistake.
Yeah. But yeah, that's a fucking cash grab right away. She's just a Santa baby version. Oh my goodness. That's got to be cringeworthy.
I wasn't even aware that didn't even come up in the research.
Imagine like a 16-year-old Taylor Swift doing Santa baby. That's going to be so crazy.
There's a reason it's not on Spotify.
Yeah. So her second studio album, put it that way. So wins a shit ton of awards, wins a Grammy for Best Album. But the most notable of these awards that year, of course, was winning Best Female Video at the MTV Music Awards, where famously her acceptance speech was interrupted by a Hennessy-fueled Kanye West.
Oh.
The notably level-headed Kanye West, right?
Right.
Very rational individual, put a lot of thought into this.
That's helpful context, because I think in my mind's eye, of course I remember that meme and that, when that happened, but I thought she was a bigger megastar at the time, but she's still on her rise at this point.
Yeah, and she's also like 18 or something like that. Like, she's very young.
She's breaking through into the mainstream.
She's on the rise, but she had just won a Grammy for Best Album, or I don't know what order that came in, but it was all in the same year. And so still on the rise, but had already reached pinnacles that most people would feel is like a Lifetime Achievement Award.
I think I'm saying it makes Kanye even more of a dick than I thought.
Yeah, that it does. It does. But what it also does, though, is it turns her from award-winning artist to a sympathetic national figure. And that really does kind of up the ante for her, and it intensifies the media scrutiny. And he even later wrote a song where he makes a reference like, I made that bitch famous. And he didn't make her famous, but clearly I didn't know who she was before that, even though she was winning an award. And I sure shit knew who she was the next day. And so did everybody in America. And That absolutely played a part in kind of the acceleration.
Do you remember there's like a off camera in the break, a commercial break from an interview with President Obama where they ask him about Kanye West interrupting Taylor Swift, and he like calls him a jackass and stuff like that. Like everybody was talking about it. It was a huge popular cultural movement.
Is there any evidence? I know we're talking about Taylor, not Kanye, but is there any evidence that the MTV Video Music Award producers juiced that a little bit? Like, were they plying him with whiskey in the back or something?
Being like, you don't need to take those antipsychotics, man. Kanye, come on.
Because they're trying year over year to create moments like that. And in this case, grand success, right?
Yeah.
I wouldn't be surprised if they had a PSYOP team backstage.
Lathering him up. And
Yeah, Beyonce did make the best video this year, didn't they? It was pretty amazing, wasn't it?
I didn't see any evidence of that. It's entirely possible. I would not be the least bit shocked, but that is a big sort of turning point for her. And in a way, I think that's when she starts moving from this country prodigy to being a pop culture figure who's under constant public scrutiny. This is when her relationships start to be picked apart. She's, essentially being slut shamed, to just call it what it is. All of her relationships start being heavily scrutinized. And it just sort of ratchets up to the point where it keeps going. And just when you think some of those numbers and some of that success can't get any crazier.
Hold on, let me ask you a question. When did the MTV Video Music Awards happen? Do you know?
That incident, that was 2009.
2009. Was it in September of 2009? Because like that album went on September 10th, 2009. That album went gold, platinum, 2 times platinum, 3 times platinum, and 4 times platinum. It was all certified on September 10th of 2009. So it was just like meteoric spike in sales that happened. I'm wondering if it was like right after that.
Oh, that's very possible. Yeah, I don't know when it was. I didn't catch a month on that, but
They're airing in early September this year. That might be accurate.
Wow, what a fucking boon for her. She should be buying him Christmas presents every goddamn year.
yeah, I don't know about that, but I think she would acknowledge that played a big part in putting her on the map, so to speak. But look, all these numbers are insane. Her album sales, it started to get to be like fake numbers when you looked at all these albums, the awards, the Grammys, and it's pretty wild when you look at it, which brings us to our favorite segment of the show, By the Numbers.
Woo!
These numbers are going to be nuts. I'm looking forward to this.
Well, actually, you might be disappointed because I'm going to cop out a little bit, and I would say it would be easy to do a bunch of shock and awe, right? Because again, these numbers are staggering. But again, it started to get to a point where it started to become meaningless. We're talking millions upon millions of album sales. So I'll focus on a few things that have stood out to me. The first one being 1.6 billion, which Rob already alluded to earlier, which is her estimated net worth. Say what you want about her parents, growing up privileged, whatever. That's quite a feat to have made just from being a musician and at the age of 35. Maybe Paul McCartney is a billionaire, maybe Springsteen, but there probably aren't many others that are in that rarefied air, right?
Well, certainly not in that rarefied air from just like album and concert sales. Like Dr. Dre became a billionaire when he like teamed up to make beats. A lot of people do other ventures that make them a lot of money, but
yeah, like Jay-Z started a record label and all that.
Exactly. From what I understand, I don't think she has any side hustles going on. She's probably got like investments and stuff like that, but I think most of her income is just records and album sales and like concert sales, right?
She has done business ventures, but they are related to her music, right? So she's done concert films that have grossed a bunch of money.
According to a Wikipedia article about music artists by net worth, she is only beaten by Jay-Z.
And Jay-Z's like 55 or something, right?
Yeah, and he's got his fingers in a lot of pots as well.
And he's also got that Beyonce money, right? Are they counting that in his net worth?
Beyonce is farther down the list, so I don't know how they're differentiating. I mean, who knows how accurate these things are, but I'm just saying, according to this, Springsteen is below Taylor, as is Paul McCartney.
That is fucking crazy. I mean, knowing how popular she is now, I guess it's not, but it's wild. So much so that people were joking around that when she got engaged to Travis Kelce, who is probably among the best tight ends of all time. He's probably made $100 million in his career, joking that he would have to sign a prenup in that relationship.
Well, his earning years are almost done, whereas hers,
Yeah.
she could keep making catalog money indefinitely.
Oh, that podcast contract, though.
He's an American football player for anyone who might be confused.
Yes. Could you imagine, though, that you're just like, hey, Taylor, honey, I got a podcast contract for like $100 million. And she's like, oh, that's cute. Yeah.
Add it to the pile.
I gave like $300 million to my crew for this last tour just as a gift, whatever, who cares?
That's nice.
I'll top that, though, with the next number, which is $10 billion, which is the estimated economic impact of her recent Eras tour, which was brought up earlier. And so
It's insane, by the way.
and so that accounts for obviously ticket sales, everything that goes into the concert, hotels, restaurants, all the money that gets pumped into these towns when her show came to town. To me, I felt like that was sort of staggering because that's, personal network worth is one thing, but you're kind of moving GDP almost at that point, which is pretty wild.
That's like World Cup levels of GDP impact.
For sure. Next number is the number 1.3 million, which is the number of albums sold in the first week. And I'm not even talking about the original recording. That's the re-recorded version that she released of this record in 2023 because of that dispute. So let me just restate that. So setting aside all of the albums that sold originally, upon re-release of the same exact album, and it is basically the same, in the first week, she sold another 1.3 million copies. Now, there were a couple bonus tracks on there. That's something that she's done with these re-releases, but
That means almost certainly everyone had already bought the album and then bought it again to support her.
Pretty impressive.
yes.
Well, I did see that there was some shade being thrown at not just her, but I think that she was one of the people that was sort of leading this charge. There was this trend within the last probably 7 years of releasing 4 different prints of the same vinyl when the album comes out. So there'll be a blue version that has different art and a pink version that has different art. And people would buy all of them. And they're like, that's just kind of a cynical ploy to get a lot more money. You're not really providing anything new. And I don't necessarily agree with
It's
that.
the latest in a long series of cynical ploys. I mean, who are we talking about here? It's the fucking music business.
Yeah, it's not 20 minutes of silence followed by applause.
Good reference to the Best of Marceau record. Let's not underplay how insane it is to re-record your tracks. That takes a hell of a lot of effort. There must have been a lot of spite fueling that effort. It's not simple.
The deal must be pretty sour, right? The deal you're sitting on must really, something about it must be pretty dirty.
Yeah, I'm just referring to the effort and the implied nerdery that allows you to go on that journey.
Yeah.
Yeah. I do think, Rob, spite kind of had a lot to do with it because I did get the sense that it was more like, I'm not necessarily pissed off that I don't own it. I'm pissed off that you own it. And so I need to take it away from you.
It's cool. It's something I can get behind because it was a lot of hard work. And again, it implies recording nerdery to really tease apart everything that's going on and then redo it. Jesus.
Well, and I can't think of anything I'd want to do less if I were that successful than re-record the shit that I'd recorded before.
While also making new albums, by the way. Also still making and producing new music this whole time.
She does crank out work in a Zappa-esque way. It's just a lot of material.
Good comp. Man, the Swifties are really, they're glad they tuned in. They're just getting compared to Phish, Zappa.
What's next, Rush? No, Tom, you're exactly right. I won't get too much into this story. I didn't bake that in a whole lot here on this, but what happened was the original record company, Big Machine, that she initially signed to, the owner, after she left there, once the deal expired, she moved on. He ended up selling the company to a guy who was the head of a venture capital firm, but he was the guy he was Justin Bieber's manager. I think it was maybe Ariana Grande's manager for a bit. Apparently a total sleazeball.
Sydney Sweeney's current boyfriend.
No.
Yeah. Scooter Braun, right?
Oh, really? Oh, no shit.
You still going by the name Scooter and you're 30? I mean, come on. What the fuck is this guy doing?
Dude, I mean, he's a 100-millionaire dating Sydney Sweeney. I think he's pretty comfortable with his life choices at this point.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, certainly. The envy is there, believe me. But he was also really involved with Kanye, and Taylor thinks that he was, and this might be true, I'm just saying this was her perspective, that he was stoking a lot of they continued beefing well into 2016, and she thinks that he was stoking a lot of that. So when she found out that he was getting it, that probably is what fueled some of the spite. And she has literally said specifically, I don't want him to make $1 off this, which he made a shitload of money because he then sold the masters to Disney's sort of investment arm. And between flipping the masters over a period of, I think, a year and whatever he made in that year that he had them, he cleared like $200 million just from that.
Holy shit.
Damn, dude. Honestly,
Gotta start flipping some masters.
good on him, but also, like, I can't say this enough. Mad fucking respect for Taylor for literally being like, I'm going to dedicate years of my life to a fuck you. I can get 100% behind that.
This is something Tom could give me.
Yes.
Finally got Tom hooked. A couple more numbers for you here. One is the number 9, and that's the number of producers listed on this album. We touched on a few of them earlier. Not going to do the whole roll call, but again, really signaling a clear shift towards polish production. Was not something she had in previous albums. She did have Max Martin on a song or two on the album that came before this, but this was a full-throated effort to get that pop maximalism.
And the album before this is Red, right? Which does sound like pop, but also there's like acoustic guitar moments. There's like clear acoustic guitar jangle where like that's gone here. There's none of that.
Correct. Yeah, it's the one before this Red is a little more of that crossover country pop where you're seeing it start to emerge.
Where now you're fully there.
Exactly.
Well, RE, the producers thing, I noticed it also had a bunch of studios listed. And it made me think, well, she's probably touring and getting studio time wherever she can with whoever's around to a certain extent, right?
That is true, but she also, a lot of these people were kind of handpicked for certain songs. She had people that she wanted to write songs with, and it does get a little muddy in terms of who did what. I'm inclined to give her the benefit of the doubt because of her songwriting background, but it's hard to know, what levers is Max Martin pulling? How much is he writing the hooks and she's writing everything else? Is she just writing the words? So it all gets a little bit muddy when you get to something that's this sort of manufactured, I think.
Sure, yeah.
And then final number, this is just a little throw in here. I find this a little cheesy, but it's also part of allure. It's number 13. She's kind of obsessed with this number as it's obviously this sort of unlucky number, but she drops these Easter eggs in a lot of songs and she makes reference to this. It's just something that comes up. I think her dad started a management company and he has 13 in the name. The thing I found weirdest about this, though, is there's a term for this, these people that are obsessed with the number 13. It's known as a triskaidekaphile.
That's an interesting factoid.
Seems like that word doesn't need to exist.
I had heard of tridecaphobia before, kind of the opposite of that. But
I would trust Rob's pronunciation far more than mine. So if
But his people are scared of the number 13. Yours are obsessed with it.
They're tridecaphiles. Yeah.
Okay. I think we've covered this ground a lot so far. How about we get into some of these here songs?
Let's do it.
All right. Let's revisit the song that we opened the episode with, which is the album opener called
vocal tracks. It's like Taylor sings, then she doubles it or triples it or quadruples it, then she harmonizes herself 4 times, then she triples all those, then she does a whisper take, then she does a falsetto take. It's pretty wild.
Yeah. It's also not a very good song.
That's definitely not, no.
Do you guys remember there was a Mr. Show skit back in the day where the premise was that they were going to evict all of the people from San Francisco and turn it into like a family-friendly amusement park, basically like a theme park? This has the feeling of that. It's like everybody here wanted something more. I'm like, most fucking people were born there, Taylor. They just live there. That's just their life. You are a rich person coming to New York to have an experience, but that's not what most people are doing in New York. Seem a little tone deaf.
I wrote that it sounds like it was commissioned by Chevron to play at the gas station pump outside the Holland Tunnel.
Wow.
I don't mind this as much. I mean, I think this is one of the weaker songs on our list, but I mean, if you're going for like pumped out of a canon, like vacuum sealed, punchy compression, pop compression, right? Like, what do you want?
Yeah, I'm sort of mid on this one. I do not think the bass elements are very good, but I, of course, can understand why once you come up with this sentiment, you're like, well, clearly people will enjoy this.
Yes.
It's extremely trite, but it works.
Yeah, yeah.
As a counterpoint, this is the opening song to the children's movie, The Secret Life of Pets, which I saw with my kids before I had ever heard the Taylor Swift album. And I assumed it was just a cast-off song written for that movie. Like, that's the vein of song that it feels like to me.
You know what? I played a fun game, which I now have the answer to, but I was playing a fun game with myself where I was listening to these and I was like, which of these made the Eras Tour set list and which definitely did not? And I was confident that this would not be in the set list, and I was correct.
Yeah, this is not one of the better ones.
Yeah, I put this one on because it was the opening track to this album and to this idea of rebirth and going to New York and almost this reintroduction of her. And I felt like I expected it to be way better as a kickoff track. In fact, I left feeling like this is the kind of song that you open an album with when you already know millions of people are going to buy it.
Good point. Yeah.
Because you're not trying to hook anybody. You already got that pre-built audience. I think it's a pretty weak song. I was a little surprised. I don't think it's the worst song on the album or anything, but I was pretty underwhelmed by it as well.
Yeah, and this is sort of where that do like undertoning of the drone synth, like you said, Rob, it's like polishing a turd, and I just feel like it needed something more to make it interesting and not completely stock. It's a stock sentiment. It's a stock production. It's stock singing. And then there's 57 voices coming at you. I would not have started the album with this, but Alan, like you said, I'd be thinking of hooking people. She's certainly not worried about that. She's like, who gives a shit? Everybody's buying this.
It's also a question of the audience, though. 4 13-year-old girls in Birmingham, Alabama, dreaming about what New York would be like if they were to go to there, with dreams. This is about the level of sentiment they're at.
Yeah.
Right? It is. Yeah. It's surprising in the sense that when you move to a new city, especially a place as wondrous and diverse as New York, one would presume you'd have more ideas about it than what are expressed in this song.
Yes. Well, and also, like, spoiler alert to those 13-year-old girls. If you're still poor, it's going to suck. And also, Birmingham's probably pretty great if you're fucking rich like Taylor. So, like, everywhere kind of works.
Right.
Yeah. Are you referring to the communist hellscape of New York?
Yes, exactly.
No. Okay, let's move on to the next track on our list, which is called...
That I'm like, you can hear, strip this out, change the cadence of the vocals in the pre-chorus, and this is a country song. So this is the one where I feel like a lot more Taylor in this one.
It's good writing.
Yeah, I tried to envision all of these, even though clearly that's not what she's doing anymore, but trying to think of if she was sitting down with just her and acoustic guitar, what would it sound like? The first song, I don't even know how you would play that on guitar. It's nothing. But this is infectious.
For me, this also does the Bob Dylan thing a little bit, like we talked about Bob Dylan earlier. This makes me like feel emotions about an experience I didn't have. Right? Like I am pulled into this story in a way that like it activates something, right? That like not all songs activate. I say a small percentage of songs activate.
She gets a lot of great lines off. You look like my next mistake. I can make the bad guys good for a weekend. I'm a nightmare dressed like a daydream. They're a little, they're not aimed at me, right? But they're hooky. They hook in your mind.
But when you think about who they're aimed at, for like a 14 to 17-year-old girl, it's a fantasy, but it's not that dangerous, but there's still a little element of danger. Like we said, it's not like Lil' Kim talking about, I'm going to drive drugs across state lines and fuck a bunch of rappers. It's like, I'm going to have a romance with a guy that my mom doesn't particularly like. You're like, all right, well, yeah, that sounds about the speed of rebellion that they're at.
I think it's also a good example of where the production elevates it, because I do think the production manages to build consistently throughout the tune, or at least throughout the parts of the tune, and that in spite of the fact that it is just the same chord progression, I think, through all the sections.
Because of the way like the lyrics are thrown back and forth between like two versions of her, it really, just something about it and us talking about it makes me think of Welcome to the Jungle and her going like line by line. going in and out of the booth. I'm not saying that's what happened. I can just imagine it because it's so back and forth. And a lot of the lines are delivered with like an almost stage presence mindset, right? Like a theater mindset. There's a lot of character on delivery on some of these lines.
Yes. And this is where I'm talking about. That's the naked presentation of her voice, and that like, oh my God, da da da, whatever she's saying there. That is a very well presented version of her. It's right in a good range that she can sing. And like you said, you get a little character in there. But then you get to the chorus and there's 5 Taylors and it just wipes all the character out of the voice. So I kind of disagree with that particular vocal production choice.
Yeah. I mean, I think these songs were written to be sung in an arena, but I think this is what you get when you pair a good songwriter with somebody like Max Martin. Is he's going to take these songs that could stand alone as a good song and just completely maximize the shit out of it.
Maximize.
Oh, I didn't even think of that.
There's a distortion on the bass drum. It's like under the beat. You can actually hear it the best at the beginning, and it's like stereo.
Oh God, I hated that so much. That clicky. Oh,
You
I
hate
hated
that?
it. I
Oh,
hated it.
that's
It
so
sounded like
good.
clicky.
You're just
and
wrong.
like, oh no,
Ah,
yeah,
you're
it was
wrong.
terrible. I thought like my headphones were having a problem. I was like, is like the diaphragm torn in my headphones? Is that why it sounds a little staticky?
No, that shit's so dope.
I wasn't sure. Yeah, it didn't occur to me that it even was a kick drum, to be honest, Phil. But yeah.
I mean, I guess it could be like a hi-hat or something. It's very distorted. I like it.
Whatever it is, it's a file on some fucking computer that they activated by pressing a button.
Yeah, a MIDI. Yeah, I don't think there's a single acoustic drum on this album. No.
I'm tempted to agree with both of you because I think on its face, it's a little bit oppressive, but it does create a little of a sonic signature. Like maybe that is the real challenge and the real artistry of producing pop music is you want it to be just annoying enough to stick in your brain and sound a little different.
You know what's funny? Alan, you were like, there's no actual drums on this album. And so I pulled up the Wikipedia page where they're the personnel and they have instruments. And actually, Shellback gets listed as drums and the drums is highlighted. And when you roll your cursor over the word drums, it just shows a drum machine. It's fucking amazing.
Oh, that's great. I thought you were going to stump me. I was like, oh, I didn't fact check this. I didn't think there was acoustic drums, but
Well, I was trying to call you out. Then I was like, oh, nope. Oh, yes, apparently not. Right.
amazing. Okay, let's move on to the next song on our focus list, which is called
First heard this record, I remember being particularly impressed with this song. I like the way that it immediately calls like Knight Rider sounds. And then the song
absolutely.
uses car metaphors. I remember thinking when I first heard it, like, this is particularly clever. This is particularly well executed.
Alan, I thought this was your low point.
Me? This is a banger, dude.
To me, this was the discovery because I had not heard this song.
Yeah, me too.
Very successful 80s vibe. I called it Knight Rider Thump as well. And because they really, I would argue that the best part of it is that initial verse groove. And it does something kind of interesting, right? Which is, song starts off, you think like, oh, the verse, it's a really cool groove, very 80s, very nostalgia laden. Pre-chorus and the chorus, I don't think are as good. And I was starting to think as a listener, like, oh, this isn't really paying off. But they save it for the coda. Then it does pay off, vocally and otherwise.
I don't know if I would call it the best on the album. It's hard to make any of these proclamations, but I agree. It was a find for me too, because I had heard a lot of these other songs just in the house. Hadn't really heard this one though. I'm not going to say it's like a perfect pop song, but it's got all the ingredients, and you can tell, again, this marriage of a strong songwriter with somebody who knows how to layer in these pop elements. I think it's a winner for sure.
Oh, really? This was, of the songs that you picked for the focus list, this was my least favorite song of the songs. I actually thought Bad Blood was the worst song in the album by far, and I thought it was like a huge hit too, which was weird.
I do not like that song. I purposely didn't put it on here. I didn't think it was like a low point.
It has an offensively bad chorus. I
don't know why it's as popular as it is, honestly. I do not care for that song either.
Yeah. I think that the guitar tone in this was like Billie Jean. That's like all I could think of with a guitar tone.
Yeah, no, totally like a Michael Jackson Thriller vibe. Absolutely.
Yeah. Which I think that maybe just want to listen to Thriller, which is not, fair to Taylor Swift, but I don't know. This one just didn't really do it for me. I felt like this maybe was a little bit more phoned in. Maybe I didn't get it.
To me, it was a good synthesis of 80s nostalgia, but also modern cool. I don't think it's the best song. It's certainly not the best written song. Might be my third favorite on the record, but yeah, it worked for me.
Fair enough.
I think it was cool. And in some highly sophisticated wordplay, the song is about Harry Styles and her relationship to him. So who would have thought that?
See, I don't know that background.
And Rob, you said Taylor Swift's not literary.
Let's move on to the next song, which is...
This song is a fucking banger.
Yeah, this was the one my 3-year-old loved.
Of course. How could anyone not like this song? It's the alternate example of where I feel like this, I don't know if it's maximalist production, but it's production to the max, if that makes any sense. And there isn't that much bass material, but everything just works perfectly together.
Yeah. The beginning of the song is so fucking stark. It is drums, voice, and a shitty synth sax.
Yeah.
And like that's all that you get basically until the pre-chorus of the song. That's all that you get.
That could be real drums, by the way, but...
It might be. The bass guitar does not play a note until like halfway through the second verse of the song, which is fucking awesome. It's so cool.
Because the sax is like a Barry sax.
Yeah.
To compensate for that, I think. Yeah. Which you don't hear a lot in pop music.
No, you don't. You don't.
This is obviously a crazy catchy song. This is the most popular song on the album. That might be her most popular song, I think, if you had to pick one. But to use the parlance of our time, it is also kind of cringe, I think. I hate even using that word. But
no, but that's what I'm talking about. She's a dork. She's not cool. That's why it works.
To harken back to something that Tom said in General Impressions, the best part to me, or one of the things that really humanizes her, is the little laugh in the vocal track.
Oh, absolutely. Yes.
After I go on too many dates. Yeah, because it's that moment where you step away from the processing. You're looking, I think subconsciously everyone is looking for little elements of humanity in productions like this, and she gives it.
I think where I'll stop short of calling it a perfect pop song is the bridge is pretty weak.
I think girls like it.
They do.
Well, yeah, of course. but look, if we're looking at this through the lens of its perfection as a pop song, it has. I think it's 90% there. But I think the bridge, it's hard. It's hard to recover from for me.
You're so fine energy to the whole thing, right?
Yeah, oh, absolutely. Yeah, there was kind of I feel like there was like a nod to that in the music video too.
Yeah. Yeah. Is she at one point in like a cheerleader outfit dancing? Yeah.
And it kind of has a lot of like the white void. I think that's called a psych wall.
There are so many elements of this song that are just like minor little elements that just get stuck in my head. Those fake horns at the end, that I've like
Pan left.
fucking whistling that all day long today. I couldn't help it. I've been whistling that all day.
Melody that's like to the left that I find pretty fun.
I hadn't listened to this song in a very long time, and I didn't even realize that I was doing it. But the first time that I listened to it, going into the chorus, there's 3 hits on a snare drum with claps. It's like saying, it's gonna be all right, pa, 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 because the player's gonna play. And every single time, I subconsciously I was like, oh, I'm tapping along to that every time. Like, I knew it was going to be there.
Oh, it's got like the Beatles, like, yeah.
It is Beatlesque, actually. Yeah, totally.
Yeah. Wow.
Honestly, the bridge doesn't bother me. It's silly. It's stupid pop song.
Not even a little bit. And it's short. It gets in and gets out.
You know, and it's just not for me.
And you know what? I'm going to talk more about this on the next song, but the beauty of the production is that after the first chorus, they pull back to just the sax, line, vocals, and drums for 2 bars, and then everything kicks back in. It's a really genius production move, and I will get like more in depth about why it's a genius production move, but like it just kind of like gives this like reset moment. And yeah, I found that to be, I'm going to steal the shit out of that for the next time I'm writing a song. Just pull everything back after the chorus for 2 bars and then have it kick back in.
Next time you're writing an arena pop hit.
You don't know what I do with my free time, Alan.
I don't want to know. All right, let's move to the last song on our focus list, which is called How You Get
Focus list.
Yeah, agreed.
Yeah.
Tom loves it.
No, I don't love it. But this is the song that made my like fucking brain explode from the production side of things on like how fucking smart this is. And I think that it's a Max Martin thing. I'm going to give him credit for it. Because you get this trope, and he uses it at various points on the album, where the song starts out, it's pretty stripped down, They add elements, add elements, add elements, and then you get to the chorus, and they do a big chorus. And then they cut it back to basically the way the song started for 2 bars in the second verse, and then they bring about 70% of the elements back in. And a lot of times you don't go big on the first chorus. You're like saving it for later in the song, because when you inevitably have to pull back for the verse, it's going to sound hollow. And you don't want to sound hollow in comparison to the big chorus you just did. This lets you get a big chorus right away. And then when you pull back to nothing, you're like, oh shit. And then 70% of it comes back and you're like, oh, that sounds full to me again. It's like a way to make the verse sound full in comparison to the big chorus. And I've always kind of held off to like multiple elements for like the last chorus to make it a big chorus. This lets you do the big chorus right up front. And it's so fucking smart. And like, I'm eager to write a song where I get to do that.
It's almost like starting the song on the chorus, right? But
yeah.
But not.
But it just, again, it lets you to go big really quick and then, but not sound.
Because you're going to pull it all the way back.
That's a good point, because pop music's not about slow burns.
Yeah.
It's about serving it to you quick. So they still get the chance to build something, but they just do it in a very efficient fashion.
Yeah. And then they're like, they let you rebuild it again without it sounding, oh shit, that sounds weak. If it just went from big chorus to 70% of the elements in for the verse, it would sound like it took a step back. It makes it feel like it's still taking steps forward the whole time. It's fucking so smart.
It's a 2-for-1.
That said, I said this song sounds like a Japanese arcade, something you just have to tune out and get through so you can play Street Fighter 2.
I analyzed this song way too much because of that fucking production thing. This song is kind of just like Love Story, which was her big hit to begin with. Like, if you stripped out all the synth elements in the drum machine and put a fiddle over it, this is basically just Love Story repeated, and it's even kind of the similar cadence on the big hook parts. So not a lot of progression there from Taylor as a songwriter, I will say.
I was gonna say I've never liked Love Story either. People sing it at karaoke all the time, and I always thought it was designed for people to sing poorly at karaoke.
Yeah, I do think that's a good song, and I wouldn't quite compare it to this, only because to me this one felt like the most shoehorned in. This was the closest approximation to, or the last like vestige of her country shit. And I kind of felt like if you're going to go all in, just go all the way. Don't try to be beholden to the old world, because I think that's what they're trying to do here. And to me, it just doesn't work, where it feels like they're still trying to hold that.
I think that's a good note as saying, like, this is where you think you hear like vestige of the country songwriting, right? I think I hear it a little more easily here than I do on Blank Space, just because of the production.
Yeah. That kind of made me like it, but Al and I can also understand what you're saying. Like, don't fucking half-ass it. If you're going pop, go pop, you know?
Yeah, and it's not a strong enough song to, I think, justify doing that. Like, it can't stand on its own. And I also think she's probably got 50 other songs. I probably could have thrown a different one in here.
So I actually have a question. I think this is relevant because obviously we're approaching, the vote time. Do we know when this was added to the list? Because, like, if it was added to the list immediately, he's kind of like taking a flyer on it, in which case I think it's like forward looking. But if it was on like the 2022 update, less impressed.
I actually don't know the answer to that. I'm kind of just working off this random website, this index that this guy is maintaining.
Sure. Let's see if we can find out.
I don't know the answer either, but I think there's only been a couple editions. Do you know what I mean? So there's not that many options for what the answer could be.
I did find it surprising that this was the only one on the list. And I also had that question where, is it because it's too recent? And there probably have been other albums that she's made that I think if they did like a comprehensive redo today, I would have to think at least another one would be on the list. But I don't know exactly when it was added.
And I think we've brought this up before, but to the best of my understanding, there's not great data on what I'm about to say, but to the best of my understanding, they have not done a comprehensive redo. Even though they've published new editions of the book, there's this limitation from the publisher where they have to, if they want to add new material, new albums to the 1001 book and the new edition, they're only allowed to subtract albums from the last 50 pages or something.
Well, they took off Limp Bizkit, so at least they got their heads in the right place.
Yeah, this came out in late October of 2014, and it was added in the 2016 edition. So they did add it pretty swiftly.
Oh, swiftly.
Oh. Excellent. Okay, well, it is now time to render a verdict and formally decide if her career has been a success or not. It is in our hands to make that assessment. So let's go around the horn. Phil, does this belong on the list? Do you need to listen to this before you die?
Yeah, I think you do need to listen to this before you die. I think children respond to this because it's positive and upbeat and joyful. I think it's like snarky, and I think this is quintessential 2000s American pop.
All right, Rob.
Yeah, I'm going to agree with Phil. I think it was a fun listen. I do think that pop music is its own silo, and of course, within that silo, there is bad to very, very good. And I'm confident that this songwriting and this production leaves it squarely on the very good side. That, in addition to some of the story you told, that this is a turning point for her, Alan. So, yep, it's an easy yes for me. Listen to it.
All right, Tom.
I actually really fucking like this album. I know you might not have gotten that from my comments on it in the episode, but I very much enjoyed listening to this. And I understand when I drink a Sprite and eat a Snickers bar that I'm not eating fucking health food. I understand when I listen to a pop album that it is what it is. And for what it is, it's a very good version of what it is.
Absolutely. And I'm going to make it a clean sweep and echo some of these statements. And look, I think if it's not worth your time to listen to the only album on the list from probably the biggest artist in the world, I don't really know what to tell you. I think that alone is enough of a reason. But I agree. I think this is pretty good. And if you take it for what it is, if you set aside, again, like I said, or Cynic Hat, this is well written. It's well produced. It's got a few weak moments like a lot of pop records have. But yeah, I think it's an easy yes. Definitely listen to it at least once, you people. And leave Taylor alone. Jesus Christ.
Hasn't she suffered enough? After that hard Scrabble upbringing.
All right. Well, congratulations. You made it. You can finally retire and count your accomplishments, Taylor.
Tell your fiance to invite us on his $100 million podcast and we can talk about this album with him.
I'll drink his brother on the air. That's a formal challenge, Jason. Do you hear this?
Consider that a formal challenge.
All right. Now, you've heard enough of our blathering for one day. Let's hear some of the musings of our great audience. Rob, what do you got in the way of the mailbag today?
Thanks so much, Alan. I got a couple of good missives here. We love hearing from you, whatever's on your mind, adding context to our research. And here's one from listener Sam, who writes in, Dear Rob and the Master Complainers, there was one band that I was looking forward to you covering more than any other. This band has 5 albums on Dimery's list, and 225 episodes into your history, the Albinator had yet to land on even one. And finally, I got my wish. Sonic Youth's Evol. Not only was I pleased that the earliest of their albums on the list came up first, but that I was especially happy that Dave Gebro from Discography was back on the panel. That man is fantastic.
Dave's a beast.
I agree. He's great.
Yeah, he is a beast. He did a great job giving us Sonic Youth context. Really enjoyed that. Anyway, Sam goes on to say, the Evol episode did not disappoint. This was your best work yet. I could go on, but I'll end with that thought. And just to reiterate how grateful I was to hear a Sonic Youth episode of 1001 album complaints. And I predict that you'll all like all of the other 4 of their albums on the list even more than this one. Anyway, rock on.
I don't know if you listen to us much if you think we're going to like all of them. But
He's just hoping it's going to be like Rob and Dave Gebro and Marty as the only people on that episode.
I was pleasantly surprised, and yeah, I was pleasantly surprised by Sonic Youth. So we'll see what happens, but
I still didn't get it, but I could definitely see how it connected to other stuff I did love.
Next missive, we have listener MW from Oklahoma writing, Good morning, gents. Reaching out to you from the American heartland, Oklahoma. And like good old Merle Haggard, I'm proud to be an Okie from Muskogee. I continue to be a big fan of the podcast and have been deep diving through all of the back catalog while working at the industrial manufacturing plant that builds most of the school buses for North America right here in Tulsa.
Hell yeah.
All right.
Hell yeah. It's not a glamorous job, and there aren't a lot of intellectual conversations flowing back and forth between myself and the workforce. So having this deep dive into the nuances of musical history has been a bit of a saving grace for me, as it provides that tonal backdrop of learning into what could otherwise be a rather dull and pedestrian workday. So thank you for that.
Could you imagine how bad the conversation has to be that we are considered intellectual conversation compared to what you're getting?
Have you been to America, Tom? This is pretty intellectual, man.
Yeah, I have been to America.
Have you been to America?
So he goes on to say, I did have a thought on the list of albums, and I wanted to ask you if you felt the same. I myself am a writer and a lover of all things literature, and when listening to the podcast, I've noticed that the majority of albums that have been chosen seem primarily musically driven, with little or no thought on the lyrical aspects. Sure, occasionally you have your Leonard Cohens, your Bob Dylans, your Joni Mitchells, but for the most part, this list cares less about lyrical stylings and more about cultural timestamps. For instance, Limp Bizkit, D-Late, Slipknot, and System of a Down are all on the list. Along with that, it seems that outside of these purist songwriters, you as a group have really little to say about lyrics as well, which makes me wonder, are lyrics all that important to you? Or is it about the melody, the time signatures, and the equipment? For me, I appreciate the brilliance of good songcraft, but awful lyrics completely destroy all the goodwill a song's created. I'd be curious to hear your thoughts.
I'll go first. I feel like I have a very all or nothing connection with lyrics. Like I either think they're very fun and playful, or they sort of emotionally devastate me, or like they may as well not even be speaking English.
I like Radiohead, and I can't understand a fucking word that guy is saying. I think that what it really comes down to is that, like, I'm listening to music. And so the lyrics have to be so fucking good that they eclipse the music. And that almost never happens. It almost never happens that the lyrics are so good that they eclipse the music until you get to these very singular entities, like a Bob Dylan or somebody like that.
I don't quite agree with that, nor do I agree with the premise that we don't care about lyrics or talk about them. I think we talk about songcraft, which in my mind has a lot to do with lyrical writing, almost every single episode. Now, there are plenty of artists where that is completely bereft. I will agree with you there, where there's no craft, musically or lyrically. But to me, lyrics are extremely important. So, yeah, I can't sign on for what Tom said. I think, yes, I can accept not so great lyrics, especially if they are not very well enunciated and the lyrical content is not brought to the fore of the music, as in aforementioned Radiohead. But in general, I respect good songwriting more than even all those other elements.
Well, here's another way to look at it. There's two ways to use your voice as a participant in a song, and one is more like an instrument where what you are saying doesn't really matter. And the other is as an orator, where what you're saying is the only thing that matters. And so half of the time, you could be saying nothing and it still could work. So a lot of times it doesn't work, but it still can work that way. So we're already slicing down like the possibility of like what is going to rise above the level of acceptable.
Yeah, and I'll clarify that I don't need the lyrics to be amazing to enjoy the piece. In fact, sometimes I like everything else and think the lyrics are a little lame. But I would just say if I were to stack up the bands that I actually quite like, Talking Heads, Pink Floyd, Steely Dan, I think they're all great lyricists. They're all very different lyricists.
That's a very fair point. Very fair point.
I think about it in terms of how most songs are constructed, and I'm sure there's a subset of people who write lyrics first and then build the song from there. I suspect, though, that most people who do this often are writing melody first, and then they backfill with lyrics. And, you know, that doesn't mean they're just throwing stuff in there. They're finding things that are appropriate, and that is obviously an art. But for me, the first thing I hear is melody. That's generally the thing that sticks with me. I think for a lot of the songs that I like, you could replace the lyrics with da-da-da-da-da placeholder shit, and I would still... it would get me to like 90%. So I do think bad lyrics can derail a song if they're really bad, and great lyrics can elevate. But for me, I'll sign off on what this guy's saying, in that I don't find it to be a huge part of the mix for me specifically.
Cool. Well, look, we love questions like this to get us chatting and talking and debating, and we appreciate hearing anything that is on your hearts and minds. Send it all over to 1001albumcomplaints@gmail.com.
Excellent. All right. Now, I know we are getting into the holiday season, and the Albinator likes to take it easy this time of year. So I wonder if we have any crazy twists and turns or what's the Albinator cooking up right about now for next week, Tom?
Thank you very much, Alan. Now, as you all know, dear listeners, this is usually the time where I make some pithy but ill-prepared joke about what the Albinator has been going through before we spit out next week's album. But I do need to give you a quick heads up that due to our needing to take a little bit of time off for the holidays, next week we will actually be playing our best tweets of 2025 special episode. That is right. Always love those. Little trip down memory lane of some of the best and snarkiest tweets that we managed to spit out over the course of the last year. However, in an effort to give you a heads up on what we will be listening to 2 weeks from now, we are going to spin that wheel and figure out the next album. So, without any further ado, drum roll please, we will be listening to... All right, and the album is I Against I, and the band is Bad Brains. Yeah, this is one of those bands that I hear about that like musicians love and kind of nobody else loves.
I don't know anything about Bad Brains.
I feel like I've seen this album cover before.
I mean, I know this name for sure, obviously.
Yeah, I think I flirted with this in my quasi-punk phase in high school, and it didn't stick with me, so maybe this is another shot.
So there you have it, folks. Homework assignment for next week is the album I Against I by Bad Brains.
Well, looking forward to that, and enjoy the clip show. I love this time of year. We don't do the work. Rob puts everything together, and we get to kick back a little bit, so excellent. All right. For everyone at 1001 Album Complaints, I have been Alan.
I've been Rob.
I have been Phil.
And I'm Tom.
A boosh is gonna boosh, 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 boosh.